Ryan Ries from Southern California. This is Live with Ryan Ries. Call now, 1-888-564-6173. Or post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanRies on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
What up, family? I'm so stoked that all you guys are tuning in. You could be driving in your car. Maybe you're at home watching us on the live webcast. We appreciate you guys every week tuning in to hear what we have to say as we talk about what's going on in today's culture, the struggles of the addiction and the different things. I have like 3 different people in here tonight. I have Sean McKeehan.
What's going on, guys?
We normally have in studio, and I have Christina and Claire. Thank you guys for being here.
What's up, everyone?
Hi.
We're going to be talking about some serious issues tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit with Christina about her past of dealing with eating disorders, depression, suicide, self-harm, attracted to the same sex, and body image. And Christina, can you, in 10 minutes, because we're going to have a lot of people calling in because a lot of people deal with this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that actually you had to deal with so many different issues since you were young till high school. But I mean, just today, I was telling you guys earlier that I got a direct message on Instagram from a kid in Texas that's in high school. He has to be anywhere from 15 to 16 years old. He's slitting his wrist, and he basically takes a picture and sends it to me and says, "This is my wrist." So what do? I'm like trying to call him, but I know what I have to do if people were trying to commit suicide. I don't know. I mean, it looks like he's cutting, but that's on his wrist. That could lead to suicide. So what I had to do is I had to call the cops immediately and notify them what was going on with this kid so they could send someone to his house. And so I won't get caught up in a situation of not notifying the cops. But what was crazy is, as I saw this on Instagram and you start looking at different hashtags on social media, you see all these kids have all these pictures of themselves cutting. I want to die. I want to commit suicide. It's crazy, and it's all over social media. All you have to do is type in a hashtag and you'll see. So if you're now driving on the freeway or you just tuned in and you're maybe dealing with any of these issues that we've been talking about just out of the gates, we want to hear from you tonight. We want to tell you about how you could be set free and how you could be healed from this and you could start your new life with God. Call us at 888-564-6173. That's 888-564-6173. While people are driving right now, Christina, give us a 10-minute snippet of your life from when the sexual abuse started and the abuse to where you found yourself in that hotel room, or not that hotel room, but in your room when you were crying out to Jesus.
Yeah. So, thanks, Ryan, and Sean for having me out today. I grew up, with a background, of sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and physical abuse, and because of that, at a young age, I became very bitter and, angry at the world, and I hated myself, and, a lot of that pain, I went to school and I was bullied and all this stuff, and, by the time the 5th grade rolled around, like, what do kids do when, they feel that way, when they're just full of shame and full of guilt and they have these hard outer shells. I was very much a tomboy, started dealing with same-sex attraction. And in the 5th grade, I acted out and, committed a couple felonies at school.
Really quick, I'm going to stop you right there. How'd you get involved with the same-sex attraction?
Because...
what grade are you in at this point?
I was in the 5th grade at this point.
5th grade?
Yeah. And, started, looking at girls at school in the way I shouldn't be, was exposed to pornography also,
Okay, so pornography was one of the main things that kind of led you into that.
Yeah. And, and so, by the time the 5th grade rolled around, I acted out, and I think it was a way for me to get attention. And my principal sat me down at school and he said, you're either going to go to juvie hall for the next few years or you can go through a series of counseling. And so my principal ended up stepping me in, and pointing me in the right direction. But, going into the 6th grade, my pain really manifested itself through, anorexia, and that was a way for me. It was a physical, it was an outward reflection of the love and affection that I desired so deeply in my heart that was starved in my life. Going into the 8th grade, my addiction, developed into bulimia. I was taking drugs to stay thin. I was throwing up my food, between 5 to 8 times a day. And it was the same release that, maybe like someone who would be taking drugs that would get, but that was my release.
And that's a big deal too. with a lot of high school students. I know several several stories. Kelly Vegas is one of them.
Big one.
She was big time into bulimia and anorexia, and she actually, at her senior prom, she actually had a heart attack.
Well, yeah.
Because of the lack of food and throwing up. I mean, and it's huge because this culture that we live in, right? I mean, Claire and Christina, I mean, this culture that we live in, it's all showing skinny, self-image. This is what it's all about. But not everyone's made like that.
No.
So these girls get caught up, like you got caught up in this situation.
Yeah. You know, like I was like 5'9" and you know, in a size 12 in the 4th grade. You know, my dad's a big dude. And so growing up, I wasn't aesthetically what people would call ideally beautiful. And so, you know, even going from, you know, like middle school to high school, you know, all these girls are wearing Hollister and Abercrombie, and I couldn't even fit my arm in one of the pant legs. You know, I was an athlete, but it just didn't work out.
Funny the way you put that.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's interesting, you know, because even going into like the 10th grade, you know, it came to a point, you know, where just like you said, like I would pass out over the toilet and my doctors would tell my parents, like, she's going to have cardiac arrest and die because bulimia had the highest mortality and morbidity rate of any mental illness. And nothing I was doing was working for me, you know, and there was a night, you know, in the 10th grade, you know, that, you know, I had mixed together a bottle of OxyClean and soft scrub and I was going to swallow, you know, this bottle of, you know, of what I had mixed together. And at that time, you know, I was in church. I knew that I was destroying the body that God called his masterpiece. So I dealt with the guilt of that.
So you're actually going to church.
Yeah.
And you're struggling with this, which is also very common.
Yes,
There's
absolutely.
so many kids in the church that are actually struggling with this, but they don't have anyone to talk to.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, and so that's the guilt that I had, you know, that every day I would say, God, I promise you that I'm not going to throw up my food again. I promise you that I'm not going to starve myself again. And so I dealt with the guilt of breaking promises that I made to God, you know, and so that night I actually got a phone call from like a no number as soon as I had the bottle to my mouth. And I believe to this day that it was God sending someone to call me or something that night, because if I wouldn't have gotten that phone call, I would be dead right now.
So who was that phone call?
It said no number. And even when I said, hello, like who's on the other line, like no one answered. And so it was at like all hours of the morning too, like midnight or 1 a.m, like who does that, you know? Yep. And so, you know, going into, you know, it was a few weeks later that I actually attempted suicide again. I was 5150'd, put in a hospital, and I ended up going to rehab at Loma Linda Hospital. And I was given all these tools on how to recover from an eating disorder. But my doctors were like, Christina, there's a lot of underlying issues that we're not getting to. And so when I exited rehab, it's like I took all those tools, I threw them out the door, and I kept doing what I was doing. And it was going into my senior year of high school that I picked up a razor for the first time, and I tore at my arms and legs because that's how deep my self-hate went. And honestly, when I was in the shower and I saw the blood going down the drain, I didn't even care because the emotional pain outweighed the physical pain.
And break that down a little bit too, because there's a lot of parents that are listening to the show, as well as there's a lot of kids that are actually probably dealing with this stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
We're going to know because we're going to get a bunch of phone calls tonight. They're already coming in about this stuff. But when you're cutting yourself, can you explain to the parent that's never even dealt with this and maybe their kid is dealing with this, why in the heck are you cutting yourself? What's going on in your head? How can you explain it to the parents?
Yeah, you know, so, you know, when I picked up a razor for the first time, you know, it was a 4-bladed razor. I bent it up and completely tore up my arms and legs. And when you cut yourself, it releases endorphins. And so it gives you the same feeling like you would get after working out. And so a lot of these kids, there's so much pain in their heart that they don't know how to cope with that emptiness. And so they inflict that pain upon themselves, and they already hate themselves at that point. So hurting
they don't even
themselves,
care.
yeah, it's like no big deal. And so
They hate themselves because all these people around them are, you know, like this kid that's getting bullied, you know, at their school, the kid that cut his wrist. All these negative comments, like you and your story as well, all these negative comments, all this stuff, you start believing it, and then you don't even care, you start shredding yourself.
Yeah.
How about that aspect you were talking about earlier about the control aspect?
Yeah.
Like, break that down.
Yeah, you know, so kind of like, you know, when someone might be dealing, you know, with, you know, alcoholic addiction or drug addiction, you know, and for me it was bulimia, anorexia, and cutting. You know, your life is so out of control and you're just spiraling down like a snowball effect that for me, I believed that I was in control when I would binge, when I would literally eat like 5 bowls of cereal, go in the bathroom, stuck my finger down my throat, and I would throw it up. And I would think I was in control. And in that moment, I'm thinking about nothing else but my food going down the drain. or I'm thinking about nothing else than like the blood, running down my arms. And so a lot of these kids, if their life is so out of control, that is the only thing they can control. But in reality, they're so out of control that what they're doing is not any less.
That's not.
Yeah.
That's not control.
That's not control. That's more out of control.
I've heard that many times, and I just thought it's so important to bring that up because I know there's a lot of listeners that can kind of, like you were just saying right now, Ryan, it's like parents don't understand, so I'm glad that she's being able to be very open about this. If you're listening right now, this is Live with Ryan Ries. Remember the call-out number. If you're hearing the things that we're talking about right now, we want to hear from you, whether it's cutting, suicide, you're going through different self-image issues, whatever it might be. Call in tonight. We want to talk to you. The number is 888-564-6173. Again, 888-564-6173. Or you can comment on any of Ryan's social media, and you can watch us live right now at ryan-ries.com.
Yeah, there is a way out if you've just tuned in. No matter where you're at in your life, I mean, I'm sitting in a room of 4 miracles. Everyone has a story. Every voice matters. And I know that in Romans it says, whosoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved.
Absolutely.
And he'll save us overnight. He'll save our souls, that we will have life in him. And if we take our last breath, we will enter heaven. But there's a process, a cleanup process that we're going to have to go through, which we're going to get to as we take these phone calls on how we went about that. So where were you at? You're at this place and you're sitting in the shower, you're bleeding.
Yeah.
You can't feel anything.
Yeah. I couldn't feel anything. And, I remember it was just, a couple weeks after that, that once again, me picking up a razor and just telling God, it was before my senior year of high school. I told God, like, I'm done fighting. I've gone through all these years of what I felt like was hell and torment, with living in a mental prison of what my eating disorder was. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Dealing with all this stuff. And that night, I told God, I'm going to kill myself tonight, or you're going to heal me. And I recommend to anyone, don't make that bargain with God, but God's bigger than our foolishness. And that night, the God of the universe came down and he radically healed me of 7 years of anorexia and bulimia, something that my doctor said would take years to heal, and I would still live in a mental prison after that. But I was a woman, with the issue of blood who just reached out and touched the garment of Jesus, in a moment of desperation. And in that story, it said power came out from Jesus and healed her, something that she dealt with for years that all the doctors, no one knew how to fix. And same thing with me. I was a lost cause. And the Lord healed me in that short amount of time. And from then on, I remember sitting on my school campus as a freshman in college, just reading 20 chapters of God's Word a day. And it was through the truth of God's Word that healed and restored my mind and rebuilt those cities of my mind. Like in Isaiah, it talks about how God rebuilds the ancient ruins of our mind. That's what God did. And, it was 4 years later that all my past issues of abuse and everything came to the surface in my life. And it was in 2012. 4 years after that I relapsed with cutting and depression and suicide. And, my heart was ridden, with bitterness and just all this stuff from my past, and that's what we were talking about even earlier today, Ryan, that God not only desires to heal us of our bodies, but also of our emotions and our minds and our hearts. And so during that year, God began to heal me. And, in the midst of that, I dealt with so many different things. And in God's grace, he saved my life of so many suicide attempts. But the one that I want to highlight the most, was on my brother's graduation day. My brother was graduating number 1 in his class. And I was so selfish and so far gone that when my parents left to my brother's graduation to hear him give his valedictorian speech, I was at home with a bottle of pills in my hand, and they were going to come home to see their dead daughter.
Dude, that is crazy.
So crazy.
How you can get so Satan can work on your mind. So I mean, I believe it so much.
Yeah, but that's how I felt, like such trash, and I felt like I wasn't going to be missed. I felt like no one cared in the world. And that day, I planned it out. I knew what I had to do for it to be successful, and I took the bottle of pills, and when I held it to my mouth, the Spirit of God came and spoke to me, and I felt his presence, and he said, Christina, live to love me, and live so you can love me every day for the rest of your life. And that's what I tell people now, that it was the love of God that saved my life that day. And it's the love of God that I chase every single day. I live to know him more every single day, because just like the woman in the Bible, Mary, the Lord healed her of her demons and she followed him. Right. And that's what my life is. I'm like, he's my healer. Wherever he goes, I'm going to go. So in a nutshell, that's my story.
Yeah, I love that when you said, she reached out and touched Jesus, and then healing power went out. And that's the nugget of that story is wherever you're at in your life, if you're dealing with these demons, literally demons, or these thoughts, or eating disorder, or drugs, or bitterness, or anger, anything that you're going through, that Satan gets a foothold, you got to literally reach out to Jesus in desperation, the way she was. When she reached out, she was desperate, and God showed up, and that healing power went out. I love that story, and God will be faithful if you're fully committed to Him in that situation. And it's going to be a journey, and then, I know after all that stuff happened, that God started, after He started dealing with those things, then He started bringing out this same-sex attraction. You were liking girls for a while, and God kind of surfaced that to work on that whole situation. How did He work with that in your life? Because that's let's go into this. This is a huge subject. We've talked about this before. First, it was the homosexual agenda, and then it's the transgender. And I read something today actually that said, what if you're bisexual? What does that mean? So you're half homosexual and you're half not. And then what's next? And I said this one time when I was teaching a couple months ago, when the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing, Kris Jenner thing came out. I said the next rights that someone's going to come out to is that the pedophiles are going to come out. They're going to say, well, we were born this way. We're pedophiles. So let's get our rights. And guess what happened? Today in the news, Crystal showed me that there is a pedophile community that are now going to the court system to say that they were born this way. So now they're like, before you judge us, come to our website and read more about us. Where they said we're not, sleeping with kids, but we were born this way. You were not born with a desire to want to sleep with little kids. That is disgusting. It is sin, and it is terrible. And the only thing that can heal you from that is God. It's a progression of sin, just like porn. You start with Playboy, then you go to Penthouse, then you go to Club, and then you go to Hardcore XXX, and then it turns into, multiple guys, multiple girls, and then it actually even takes you to homosexuality, and then that can lead you to bestiality. I know a kid that started all the way at Playboy, and then he became a homosexual, a young kid in the church. I've talked about that before. In New Jersey.
Well, dude, right now in our culture, especially these last couple of years, things are going so fast. We've been dealing with so many things and I think for parents, they need to be able to be praying for this community, this culture, their children, because they're growing up with like a lot of the crazy stuff being thrown their ways, and people are getting confused. We were talking about this earlier, like people are redefining things. Like there's no definitions for anything. So what's true for you may not be true for me. And that whole kind of mentality that is interwoven in our culture, especially through our school system from elementary all the way through college, is confusing a lot of people.
It's confusing.
It is. It is. And that's secular humanism. These are the results of it. And it is. They don't like to say it, but it's true. This is the natural progression that's going to take place. Well, this is what I feel makes me happy, so this is what I'm going to do. And I'm telling you what, it's a slippery slope. And if there's not a change, man, we're going to see the downfall of this youth. So confused, trying to find identity through a sexuality, trying to catch on to a trend, to find an acceptance or a feeling or something, and they're going to find themselves lacking.
I want to talk about that when she finishes, I want to talk about the same-sex marriage thing that's going on in your brother's school.
Oh, yeah.
But really quick, if you're out there, call in at 888-564-6173. That's 888-564-6173. We're waiting here to take your calls. I know we dropped a couple calls. When you talk about this stuff, that's what happens. The enemy always comes in and tries to mess with the phone lines, and you drop calls. So whatever calls got dropped, call back, and we want to take your calls. And we want to hear from you. But so what were you saying, Christina?
Yeah, the statistics say, that 1 in 3 girls now, are sexually abused, and, I almost wonder like how many of those girls that are sexually abused, like 1 in 3 girls deal with some type of sexual confusion. And that was my story, in 2013, God kind of pointed to the back of the closet, and was like, we got to deal with that issue. And in my mind, I'm like, God, well, I was the one that was sexually abused. Like, I'm the victim here. Like, I don't know why I have to deal with something that's not my fault. And what God showed me was that, yes, Christina, like, you were sexually abused. And honestly, up until that point, I had more girls that have hit on me in my life than boys. So I'm like going to God almost like a court case, being like, here are the facts. Is this who I am? But what God showed me was that the truth of what his word says that I am a daughter of God, that I am chosen, that I am a royal priesthood and holy nation, who I am in him, the truth will always override the facts. And that's the truth in any court case. And so what God did in my life was that God began to restore the brokenness in my sexuality. You know, one of my favorite illustrations, you know, is that there's actually a Japanese method called kintsukuroi, and it's where people take broken pieces of pottery and they piece it back together with gold. And it says that the piece is more beautiful for being broken, because you see the gold is revealed, you know, through the brokenness. And that's what God did in my life. I had a broken identity, a broken sexuality. He showed me that his design for my sexuality was not for me to like women, but for me to love him first. And when I love God first, me loving men, because it's not about liking guys or girls, it's about loving Jesus, and all of your desires will align to his. And you will become, you know, heterosexual, what he created you to be as you do that. You know, it's not about me trying to dress feminine or me trying to dress less masculine. It's about me loving Jesus and allowing him to restore those areas of my life.
Basically finding your identity in him.
Absolutely.
And that's a major problem with people. You know, we were talking about earlier, is people lose their identity. They get caught up in what they see on TV and everything that's pushed through social media and all these things, and no one stands for anything, and all the lines are blurred, and there's confusion, and everyone's just kind of going along with the wind. I mean, dude, I remember, it had to be in 2000, I gotta say in 2008, so probably 2009 or 10. I told you I was at the block over here in Orange, and I was walking down, and I see these two young kids making out. And I'm like, dude, those kids are young to be making out in this outdoor mall. You know those big outdoor malls? And I was like, dude, those kids are really young to be making out in public. Like, they're like in the main square of the whole thing. And as I'm walking like past the Van skate park, like down to go eat, and as I'm walking, I kind of like look in to see like, what's up with these kids? And it was two boys. And they had to be probably like 5th grade, making out in public. Why? Because it's trendy or whatever's happening. And this was back then. You know, this was like 4 years ago or 5 years ago.
Everything's increasing.
It's just, and then now, with all that said, you were at your brother's school the other day because tell me about the story of what's going on in the school district.
Well, real quick, my brother's actually on hold right there too.
Is he? Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll talk to him right now.
But I'll give a brief overview too. Is like, this is what happened. My brother's a fireman. He went into his kid's classroom to volunteer. TK, which is 4 years old. He went in thinking that they were going to do something for September 11th because it was on September 11th. He's a fireman. He's a veteran as an Air Force, all that kind of stuff. None of that stuff was done, no Pledge of Allegiance or whatever. But what was done was the teacher was reading a book called The Family Book by Todd Parr. And my brother kind of overheard it, and it talked about these families. You know, some families are big, some are small, blah, blah, blah. Some have 2 mommies, some have 2 daddies, but it's just interwoven. And the way that it is it's meant to. You know, it has an agenda behind it. My brother was cool in the class. You know, my brother, we grew up with him. He could be confrontational if he needs to. If he needs to, but he was polite. He went home. This is his kid. He called the teacher. He emailed, and it just snowballed. They actually said, well, we're a school of inclusion and tolerance and all this kind of stuff.
But they didn't even talk about the real family, the mom and dad.
There's not even like a standard family or anything. Like, so, you know, my brother brought up these concerns, and then this last week, everything was starting to escalate. I wanted to go to that thing with Ravi Zacharias for you, but I had to back out because Thursday night I had to go support my brother. We go to a big board meeting at the district of Etowanda, and as we were there, the place was jam-packed. A lot of our friends showed up, a lot of the teachers that showed up, and the main thing is like, my brother wanted to speak out because he wants to know that parents need to have rights. We're living in crazy times right now, and to be introducing young kids to this kind of material is inappropriate. It is inappropriate. Yes, there's stuff crazy going on, but parents need to be given the rights to be notified. And the teacher that took this upon themselves to do this definitely has an agenda. Me and my brother, we read up on the guy that actually wrote the book, has an agenda and stuff. And, you know, it's just, these are the days that we're living in. And my brother actually pulled his kid out of school. The board meeting went really good. There was a lot of actually good things that were behind it. But, yeah, it was an amazing thing. It's making me think a lot right now, too.
Dude, it's crazy. It's Crazy confusion. Let's go ahead and take, since we're talking about your brother, let's go ahead and grab this phone call.
That's the one up.
Oh, this one right here.
Right there.
Ryan, how you doing, sir?
Ryan,
What's up, man? How you guys doing?
chilling.
Doing good. We were just talking about that situation in your school. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, like Sean touched on a lot of things, man. I mean, basically, man, it was just a crazy week for me, man. I had a baby that was in NICU. I came home 9/11. I'm a fireman. I wanted to go hang out with my son. So I come to class thinking there'd be some patriotic stuff, pledge allegiance, some arts and crafts, something simple. None of that was done. I was a little bit bummed out, but as I'm sitting in class, she pulls out a book. She said, I'm going to read the family book. It's one of my favorite books. It's got great illustrations by author Todd Parr out of Berkeley, California. So, like, my ears are perking up, like, what are we reading here? And she starts reading this book, and I hear the two mommies, two daddies. So I'm like, okay, keep it together. Got kids in this class. Maybe this blew over their head. Let's get home. Let's reevaluate what's going on. So I get home. I tell my wife, I'm like, hey, we got to do something about this. So I go down to school. The school's closed. All right, let's go. I'm going to email her. I emailed her real nice. Said, hey, this is the deal. I'm a little disappointed with your lack of patriotism for the class. This is 2 times coming where the Pledge of Allegiance was left out. And I said, but my major concern was this book. Why are you reading this book? It's inappropriate material for a 4-year-old to hear about. Like, there is an agenda behind this. Please excuse my son in the future respectfully. She answers me back and is like, oh, thank you for coming to class. As far as 9/11 is concerned and the patriotism for the class, there's really nothing in our curriculum for 9/11. And I feel 9/11 is a touchy subject. And parents should deal with that on their own or delve in that matter on their own. However, regarding this book, our class is based on inclusion and acceptance. And I'm like,
everything's backwards.
Right.
Backwards. So it's like, you want to be the parent on one subject and on another you don't want to? Like, I'm the parent, man. My wife carried that baby.
Hey, Ryan,
Yeah.
because we're going to be going to break like in a minute, but I want you to do this. Tell the people out there what they can do or what they should do, what you're seeing as a parent.
I would say, man, be involved. Call them out. And you know what? See what your kids are being taught in the classroom, because this is something no one would have ever known. And I basically wanted to raise awareness within the community. And I got on a website and I kind of, this is how it all blew up. I got a hold of 2,400 people on the Nextdoor app. They said, hey, this was going on in your school district, guys, be aware. And it turned into this viral thing. And I got a lot of positive response. And then people who were actually involved in the school district took the post down, who were lead advisors on this post.
Right.
And emailed me in person and said, you're attacking the teacher. I'm like, I'm just telling the facts. So I had to repost it. They took it down again. So they're trying to control what was going on.
Yeah.
Be involved, and keep pushing it. They're going to try to turn you down, and they're going to try to make it, hey, this could be taken this way, this could be taken that way. And the base of the point is we made, and the board was really great. The board really heard our concerns. I thought they did a great job.
They were awesome. Hey, Ryan, I'm gonna tell all the listeners too. They can go to my Facebook. My name's Sean McKeehan, and I have some of the videos where you see my brother and myself that spoke at that board meeting. So I would just encourage you guys to pray and to get involved. Follow us on Facebook, and we'll keep you up to speed for all that stuff. Right? I know you're busy. I know I don't know if you're working right now or not, but man, we love you, man. So we'll continue. Thanks for calling in and giving us an update.
Love you guys too, man. Like you said, guys, be the parents, be involved, watch out what teachers are doing, and maybe there are some good ones in there, and there was nothing, just be involved. Keep an eye out for your kids, because what happens in their mind can destroy them for the rest of their life. So
exactly, and that's why
Thanks, Ryan.
Satan's roaming around like a roaring lion, looking to whom he can devour.
Right.
He uses girls to come into other girls' lives to sexually abuse them, guys to sexually abuse boys. Then the confusion. Satan hates the woman, and he hates the man, God's creation. He's been trying to destroy the man and woman. That was the first thing that happened in the Bible when it came to Adam and Eve, to humans. Try to destroy.
And I heard this study the other day too, and it was by Ravi Zacharias too. When it talks about in the Garden of Eden, be able to know good and evil is this. God is trying to keep you away from this. He knows that the day that you eat it, you'll be able to know good and evil. You're going to be able to define what good and evil is. What is right, what is wrong in your own eyes. Dude, that's the problem with our world and our culture today. That's a theme that you see throughout the Old Testament and the New. Man trying to do things his own way. And you've seen it all through human history. That's why we see tragedy, we see wars, we see all this disgruntledness, we see perversion. It's because man is trying to define what reality is, what is right, and what is wrong.
All right, well, we'll be back in 2 minutes. Hang tight.
More Live with Ryan Ries coming up. Call now 1-888-564-6173 or post your questions using the hashtag Live Ryan Ries on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
Well, let's hear it. Go.
Now, back to Live with Ryan Ries from Southern California.
And we're back. And I have my friend Christina in the studio, and she was just telling us about her journey coming out of, at a young age, being involved with abuse from a woman, to sexual abuse, to getting an eating disorder, to bulimia, then got into wrapped up in cutting and you know, tried committing suicide a couple times, ended up in a mental institution, 5150, just a life of chaos while she was going to church, trying to follow God. But she had all this other stuff going on in her life. And later on, God exposing that she had same-sex attraction. And God just started working on her life as she started digging into God and calling out to him. He pulled her out of this life. And since then, we were just kind of taking calls. You know, if you're dealing with addiction, any kind of drugs, suicide, maybe you're having same-sex attraction, maybe you're dealing with bulimia or you're purging or whatever it is, and you have a question about this addiction and you need some wisdom, some answers on how to overcome through Jesus Christ, give us a call. You have any questions, we want to talk to you and we want to help give you some advice of how to get through this stuff the way Christina is. And like I said, we have a room of miracles. We have 4 people in the studio and a couple people in the back room that are running the boards. And everyone that I know that's in this studio right now is walking miracles. So we love you, and you could call in. What's the number, Sean?
The number is 888-564-6173. Again, 888-564-6173. Or you can comment on any of Ryan's social media. You can watch live right now at ryan-ries.com. You could also download any of the podcasts. You want to come see on Shine. Shine's at Thursdays at 7 p.m. at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa at the Cares Building every week. Sunday night, Ryan speaking also at 6 p.m. at Calvary Chapel, Golden Springs in Diamond Bar, California. You can go to Ryan's website at ryan-ries.com to keep up with all the Shine studies, all of these studies that we have, or these nights on the radio we have here. You can go through all the archives. And if you are behind this movement, you know, Ryan has this thing, Kill the Noise, right now. He's kicking off the tour actually this week at Summit High School. over in Fontana, California. So if you want us to come to a school, make sure you go to info@ryanries.com for a request. If you guys believe in this vision, believe in this movement, you want to donate to the cause, you can go to ryan-ries.com. Thank you guys for being a part. Right before we went to break, my brother was talking about that thing as well, and he just wanted me to say, pray for the board to make the right decision on that. We're in studio here with Christina, who just has an amazing, amazing story. How old were you when you started dealing with all this stuff again? Was it like 5, like young, you said,
yes.
right? Mm-hmm. Crazy. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, when you're dealing with this at a young age and then trying to find out who you are, and then you're dealing with where you don't feel valued, and then what broke that is like you recognized an unconditional love that radically changed your life, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's people out there on so many different walks of life right now that feel broken. They're depressed. They're going through this difficulty. Share with the listening audience about that transformation.
That's awesome. Let's go ahead and we got a call. I'm going to go ahead and take this call right now. We're going to take how do you pronounce your name? Hello?
Okay. Are you talking to me?
Yeah, how you doing? How do you pronounce your name?
Gonzalo.
Gonzalo? How you doing, man? What's your question, brother?
Well, I like I was telling the sister that I'm an older person at 62 years old, and I'm getting on bed. And I have met your dad before. Ryan Ries, he's a very good pastor. I met him when he first started in Azusa. But my question is, how do I help at my age, and with a little experience that I have, because I tried to commit suicide myself when I was a teenager before I accepted Christ, and I even tried to cut my wrist, So I'm trying to identify to see how could I be a help at my age to try to help someone that is in a situation like that,
Okay, cool. I'm gonna let Christina grab this one.
Gonzalo, thank you for joining in today. So I think, a lot of people, when they're trying to reach the next generation, sometimes they try to come up with really creative ways with trying to at 62, some people at the age of 45 tried to maybe dress like they're in, that they're teenagers and try to do all this stuff. But honestly, a lot of these kids, personally, I do a lot of work in the Spanish communities, a lot of these gang-banging dudes and chicks that don't have dads in their life. A lot of these kids sometimes just need a father figure in their life, who have been through what you've been through. And you just being that father to instill value and honor into these young women and young men. And so how do you relate to them? By just being a loving father and an example of what Jesus Christ is, and just being that tightest two person in their life, just the older generation pouring into the next generation, because that's what a lot of these kids are looking for, is for a father or mother in the faith to guide them and lead them through a lot of these issues they're going through.
That's dope. Right on, man. Well, thank you for calling, Gonzalo. We're going to go ahead and grab this Kevin from Pomona. Kevin, how you doing, sir?
Hi there. Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Right on. What's your question, brother?
Yeah, my friend just came out to me today that he's a drug addict, and we're both Christian. I would love just some words of wisdom on how to best reach him.
So wait, he's a Christian, but he's been a drug addict?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's not uncommon. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios how people could get hooked on drugs. I was just with someone over the weekend that basically has been a Christian, but hurt their back, and then they had to take some pills for that, and then that led to a series of addictions. And then there's people that just aren't solid in the Word of God that are saying that they're Christians, and they're not plugged into the source. They're not reading. They're not praying. And then one thing leads to another, and they backslide into this walk. I don't know what this guy's situation was. Is that any of those? Right. Was that any of his deals?
So his girlfriend went out of the country, and he got depressed, and he knew where to get him, and he turned, and now he's stuck. He wants to get out, but he's stuck.
Okay. Well, I would say number one, I mean, first of all, he needs to get plugged into church. I don't know if he needs to go to rehab or not. If he does want to go to rehab, I would suggest if you're in California, you could go to Teen Rescue or U-Turn for Christ. But if he thinks he could shake it without going to a rehab, I would get him plugged into a church 2 to 3 times a week. They, I mean, at our church at Calvary Chapel Diamond Bar, I think you're in Pomona, but at our church we have this thing called New Thirst. It's on Thursday night.
Tuesday night, 7 p.m.
Tuesday night, 7 p.m. New Thirst. You can get them plugged in there, and that New Thirst is that basically that thirst to get them out of the drugs or alcohol and get them plugged into Jesus. And he'll be around like-minded people, and we could get him plugged in with our staff that he could have accountability, and we could help walk with them out of that.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, you guys. Keep us in your prayers.
We will be praying.
Go ahead and bring them down. And Sean, do you run that now?
Eddie Sahakian does, but I'm there too. I'm one of the pastors there at Golden Springs, man. I'd love to meet this guy and just kind of find out where he's at and just see how we can help him, man.
We know that whoever Jesus Christ sets free is free indeed. And I had a very long history of all kinds of different drugs in my life for many years. And God set me free overnight. He could set him free. He just needs to get plugged in.
Absolutely.
And
Great.
if you're
Thanks, guys.
right on, brother. And if you're listening, if you're not in California and you're somewhere else in the United States or even around the world, Teen Challenge is around the world. I've done speaking tours all through Australia at Teen Challenge, New Zealand. Right. They have them in South America. They have them like in Tonga, Fiji. They're everywhere. And
another thing too is like with Christina, all the stuff that she's doing right now. I know she got a lot of events, and there's a big event that's coming up called the Power of Purity Youth Conference. It's a bilingual. It's for guys and girls. November 14th at 9 a.m. through 9 p.m. at the main sanctuary at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. You can go to IamRoyaltyMinistry.com. Why don't you share about what you do? Because you do a lot of stuff now. Tell the listening audience what you do.
Yeah, so, right now I'm the founder, of a young women's ministry called I Am Royalty. And a lot of that was really birthed out of my story. Throughout high school, there was not a lot of resource for people, that were struggling with different things. And so, God was just showing me, like, Christina, I've given you the tools. Use your story to help reach other people. We're set free to help set other people free. Yep. And so basically with this event, is that, we're partnering with the Calvary Spanish Ministries, I'm very good friends with a lot of the Spanish Calvary Chapel, youth kids. And, a lot of what we're going to be talking about is family dynamics, is, yes, we have all these kids coming in that are gang banging and on drugs and girls finding love in all the wrong places. But a lot of that is linked to the father and mother issues and the brokenness in the families. And so for a full day event, it's going to be a bilingual event. We're going to have, dance crews coming out. We're going to have spoken word. We're going to have worship. We're going to have an afterglow. We're going to let the Lord move and really speak into the lives of these kids. But we're actually going to be showing them that these things you're dealing with are really linked to brokenness within the homes and in the families. And if we can paint for them a picture of what a godly father and mother looks like, then they can break the vicious cycle of brokenness, that has happened in their communities. And so that's what we're going to be doing. It's a free one-day event. We want to encourage you guys to come out. Like we said, it's going to be bilingual. And so we're excited. The Lord is opening up doors for us to take it to Argentina and also to Australia. And so we just believe that God's writing a story of purity in this generation. And that's what we're hoping to do. It's a free event. We're a bunch of young hippie kids using our lunch money to put it on. So be praying for us.
And I've been to those events. I've been to one of their events before, and it was epic. I showed up, thought it was going to be a small event, and there was a ton of kids. I don't even know where they all came from, but it was jam-packed.
Yeah.
And it was really rad. Hey, get the number out, Sean.
So if you're listening to right now, you can call in at 888-564-6173. Again, the number is 888-564-6173. In Christina's life, she's gone through cutting. She's gone through struggling with her sexuality, identity. She's gone through verbal abuse, sexual abuse, so many things in her life. Really a story of a person that was broken, and now how God uses, a broken vessel. He restores it to be able to reach out to other people. And that's actually what she's doing. I mean, that's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing. I'm sure Claire's doing the same thing. It's like, we come from lifestyles that we felt like there was no way out. And there's probably people out there right now that you feel like there's no way I'm going to overcome this. And for me, I remember battling with drugs and being strung out on meth right before I came to the Lord. It's like, you go self-destructive. That's how I always relate to it. It's like, dude, I'm going to get busted by the cops eventually again. I'm going to go to court. I'm going to get a suspended license. I might as well just party out, and who cares what the outcome is. But you know what? That's what Satan does. Satan rips off our youth. Before you know it, you were 30 at that time. Before I knew it, I was 27. This started when you were a young girl, and then boom, all the way. You're in high school. You're going through all of this stuff. Satan wants to truly rip off people's life. And Christ, when you come to Christ, you will find who you are, your identity in Christ. You'll be able to start truly a brand new life. But it's not easy, and I'm glad that Christina was open with the struggles. You're very open, Ryan, with the struggles that you had. You come to the Lord, He sets you free, your eyes are open, you're not doing drugs no more, you're not living the lifestyle that you once did, but there's temptation. There's things that are being thrown at you. I think you're battling with emotional stuff as well. I think so important. People want to conquer things in their life. You got to get alone with God. You really do.
Yep.
From the Old Testament to the New, God, when He meets a person, He meets them individually. And it's like, now it's inventorying your life.
The burning bush.
Yeah.
And then Isaac wrestling with... Jacob wrestling with God. Mm-hmm. And then changed his name to Israel, governed by God. Mm-hmm. You're not going to do things your own way. You're a conniver, I'm going to change you. And I'm going to govern your life. Well, here's another call that kind of goes along with the one gentleman that just called about reaching this generation. Here's Daniel from Upland. Daniel, you're on live with Ryan Ries. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up, Ryan? Hey, Christina, thank you for your testimony. And Sean, I love you guys. I love the whole Whosoever movement. And one of the questions I had was, it's similar to the Gonzalos. And it's... I'm a new believer, and me and my wife, we just got married, and we're reading the Word, we're in the Word, and we are having opportunities to share the gospel. And I seen a lot of your videos on YouTube, mm-hmm. and I seen how you these events that you throw and where you share your story. There's two places that. It's two places that I wanted to share the gospel, and maybe if there's an opportunity, lead them to Christ, right? And as well as like what family, because I come from a gang infested area.
Yeah, totally.
And a lot of things were now that I'm walking the Christian life, and I'm trying to avoid the temptation and all that stuff, and we're doing real good. And it's like I feel like there's a fear that overcomes when I talk about Jesus. I don't want to, I'll see my old homies that I used to kick it with, and even though I'm in a new place now, it's like I feel like I should tell them, like the Holy Spirit's telling me to talk about Jesus. But it's like I don't, you know what I mean? And sometimes it kind of bothers me, and I get like a conviction. I was wondering if you guys been through that, or if you guys had that experience, and how did you overcome it?
All right.
And if you could really talk about as being a new believer, and when you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, how did you develop such a strong faith?
Okay, here we go. So a couple of us are going to say something. First of all, when I first found God, when I first gave my life to Jesus, I didn't know exactly who Jesus was. I haven't read the Bible, so I know I had Jesus in my heart. He delivered me from drugs and alcohol, but I didn't immediately go out and start sharing my faith with everyone, because that would freak out my friends. I mean, right. Your friends right now, they think you're completely out of your mind because you love this guy named Jesus Christ, that you call your Lord and Savior. So they already think you're crazy. Second of all, the best sermon you could possibly give is your life.
True.
Mm-hmm. You just live out. They already know, if you came out of the gang lifestyle, they know you're crazy. They already know who you are in the world. They already know who you are. So now you give your life to Jesus, just get plugged into church, see who he is, but no matter what, without you saying one stinking word to these guys are all watching you. And they're going to either see you come out loco like, hey man, Jesus loves you, and you guys are this and that. And dude, they're waiting for that. You just got to sit back and love on them. The fact that you love Jesus Christ, they already know there's a change. They're not seeing you probably drinking, smoking. They saw you get married to your girlfriend, so now you're married. So that's already probably a shocker. But they're already seeing God work in your life, so they're watching you. And as you grow in a stronger faith and know who he is, then God will open doors where they'll ask you questions, and you could open the doors will be open where you could communicate with him. But I've seen it too many times because you're excited because what Jesus is doing in your life, but Jesus isn't doing that in their life. They're still out to lunch. So you got to just wait till that right time where you could share your faith when God opens that door. Because if not, you could end up scaring them all away. It has to be all about timing. And in that timing, God opened the door for me to talk to each one of my friends individually. And there's some doors that I haven't been able to talk. Some doors haven't been open with a lot of my friends where I haven't even got to talk to them. But guess what? They're all watching my life. And that is the best sermon you could possibly give is your life, that you make sure you keep your nose clean, stay in the Word of God, and you don't fall back. Because if you don't stay rooted and grounded and you start preaching to these guys and you end up falling back, they're just going to go, I knew it. Right. I knew it. So the best thing to do is just see what God wants to do. Do you want to say something, Christina?
Yeah, Daniel, I work with a lot of, youth kids, and a lot of people in the Spanish communities. A lot of these kids are coming out of gang backgrounds. And, I think, there's even a movie that recently came out, funded, by Calvary Chapel called The Neighborhood Film.
Yeah.
And it was by 4 big Calvary Chapel pastors that came out of gang backgrounds, and they all talked about how they didn't have dads growing up. They didn't know what it was like to be a son who was loved by a father. And so they found fathers in gangs. And so when you can sit with God every single day and show these guys that you are so loved by the Father of Heaven, they're going to want what you crave, and they're going to go away from the fathers in the gangs, and they're going to want to follow the Father that you follow. And that is the Father of Heaven, and so I would encourage you to do everything that, Ryan did, because as I talk to these guys and these youth kids about the love of God, they leave the gangs behind. They're like, dude, I'm not going to look for love in gangs no more. I'm going to look for love in church, because that's where the Father of Heaven is. Like there's a song that says, come and go with me to my Father's house. That they would want to go with you to church because they see that you feel so loved and valued by God that you don't need that stuff no more.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for calling, dude. Love you, Daniel. Keep going for it, dude. God's got you, and who knows? You might be slanging the gospel in the ghetto and just bringing all those dudes to Christ. But fall in love with who He is and learn. Just wash your mind with the Gospels and learn who He is, and that stuff will come out in timing. We're gonna go ahead and grab this call from Riverside. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
What's going
Yvonne,
on?
how you doing? What's your question?
Well, I was calling it. I just drove from Orange County to Riverside right now, and I was hoping you guys would still be on by the time I got home, and so luckily you were, and I got through.
Radical.
But, yeah. So I'm calling regarding my oldest son. He was recently diagnosed in March with severe OCD and depression, and over the years he's struggled off and on with depression, and this time, with this OCD now, he's having intrusive thoughts, and he has thoughts of suicide now, and the thoughts that he has are just really, really bad. And so, he's been struggling, like I said, since March with this, and he didn't share it with me until June. Well, yeah, it was around, I'm sorry, it was around May when he finally told me what was going on. And I was able to talk him into going to see a therapist. And, just with the insurance and everything, I'm having a hard time right now getting him the treatment that he needs or coverage with our health insurance. But he's seeing a therapist weekly, but he still struggles with these thoughts of suicide. And he tells me, that he already knows when he wakes up the next morning, the thoughts are going to be in his head again, and they're just there all day, every day. And I just don't know. I mean, he's accepted the Lord. He was probably about 13 years old when he did, and I've fallen back, and I'm recently back in church again, and in the Word, and he's not growing. He's 22 now, and so and I try to share the Word with him, or tell him when these thoughts come in, just rebuke it and pray and ask God to, just to heal him and take these thoughts out. And he's, he gets upset when I start talking to him about this stuff. And I really don't know, like, right now how to handle it. When he starts thinking about hurting himself.
Is there a way that we could meet up with him anytime soon?
meet up with him.
Yeah, meet up. We're in Diamond Bar, Calvary Chapel Diamond Bar. Is there a way that we can meet up with him? You could bring him to church maybe on a Sunday night, and we could meet up with him and
probably. I would definitely try to get him over there.
Okay. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to. Well, first of all, we know it's a spiritual warfare. It's the enemy. The enemy's messing with his mind. He's putting these thoughts. I mean, there's several different things that the enemy could be doing, but I would like to actually sit down with him and find out everything that he's into, because I mean, we don't know what he's into. What music is he listening to? Is he using drugs? Is he in porn? I mean, there's so many different things that he can open the doorways to this stuff.
Oh yeah, he did share with me that he had been addicted to porn for quite a while.
Yeah, and that I'm gonna tell you right now. I mean, there's statistics that are not Christian, that are from the mainstream, say that porn causes depression. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a major issue right there. But I would like to be with him. I'm gonna put you on hold, and go ahead and just stay on hold, and we're gonna get all your guys' information, and I want to set up an appointment to meet with him. And we'll get down to the bottom of this, and we're gonna pray over him. We're gonna show him the way to come out of this.
Yvonne, as you as a parent, what you need to do right now on your behalf, because you can't change your life. You can intercede, you can pray, you can love on him. Like I said, I would get a time where you can kind of have him meet with Ryan as well. I think that would be a great thing. And the main thing is letting him know that he's not alone. We want to walk through him through these issues and problems, man. We live in a fallen world. People battle with stuff. They battle with depression. The enemy definitely wants to discourage and to destroy. But the Lord is able to heal and restore. So when you're going through your own kind of like lapses of faith, the Lord will be faithful. You just hold on and trust, okay? Yeah. And don't let the enemy beat you up on that. Thank you so much.
Prayer is crucial. So hang tight. We're going to get your information. I think we have 2 minutes left. Let's just grab this before. Okay. We have Josh from Menifee. Josh, we have 2 minutes. What's your question, man?
Hey, I'll make it really quick. I have my cousin Brian. He's really addicted to alcohol. Lately, he's gone from just a bottle a night to like the gallon bottles. And recently on Wednesday, he went to the hospital because he's drinking too much. But as Christ has intervened, like me and my dad have been praying for him, so he's willing to go into a Salvation Army rehabilitation. So I just don't know like what to pray for him. I don't know what to say to him, because like I have a glass of wine here and there every once in a while, and he goes, "Well, you drink." So like I don't know what to say to him, like as a Christian. Like,
yeah, that's one of the big. That's one of the big problems about drinking, and this is why I tell people not to drink, even if they have the. Oh man, we're out. Hey, why don't you go ahead and hang tight, and we're gonna get back to you in a couple seconds.
You guys remember to follow Christina and everything that's taking place in her life on the social media today, but go to IamRoyaltyMinistry.com. Don't forget about the big conference November 14th. Peace. Love you guys.
This has been Live with Ryan Ries. To connect or find out more about Ryan, click on ryan-reese.com. Check us out next Saturday at 9 p.m. for Live with Ryan Ries.